Right, let's take a look at what they're all talking about, which is essentially 2 or 3 big mountain stages cut out and glued together after all the connecting valley roads have been removed. 6 summits, including 1 special category and 4 Cat 1s. 5,000 metres of vertical climbing, nearly 4,000 of descending, and no flat, all packed into a stage of just 138 kilometres, for which the forecast is rain. Now, just one non-starter to report coming out of the rest day, Vladimir Isaichev of Katusha. So Joaquin Rodriguez, a teammate down, and 179 men left in the race. The first climb started immediately, and as it did, Chris Froome crashed. We didn't see how, but it looked as though he might have clipped the low log railing at the side of the road. Sky didn't overreact, only Christian Knees was sent back to pace him, and the pace was very conservative. It took 45 minutes for Froome to get back, but he did it with the minimum of energy expenditure. Omar Fraile got into the day's break and took the 10 points at the top of the first climb to extend his lead in the King of the Mountains competition. Lampre's Ruben Placer beat him to it at the top of the next. And by the time the race hit the third climb of the day, Movistar's Imanol Erviti had gone clear on his own. He went over the top of the Col de la Rabassa on his own, with Fraile and Placer second and third some minutes behind him. Once Froome had safely established himself back in the field, Sky set about their customary show of force, with 8 riders on the front of the main field, the only man missing being Ian Boswell, who was in the break. 3 more climbs to come as we join commentary. There are riders still out front, Omar Fraile and Astana's Michael Landa among them, and Astana have taken over pacemaking duties at the front of the main field on the super category Collar de la Gallina, as Sky are slipping back.
Well, 42.9 kilometres of this extraordinary stage remaining, and our first sight on this climb of Chris Froome, and a lot of urgency from Team Sky, who were at the front just now as they got the message that Froome was in trouble, and he has been dropped off the back of this group, and Geraint Thomas is going back to him, and he doesn't look at all comfortable here. So he's had this moment of anguish right at the beginning of the stage today when he crashed, and you can see the after effects of that on his left elbow and shoulder there, and it's beginning to take his toll.
Yes, I mean, we saw the beginning today, but he seemed to have reasonably under control after that crash at the beginning, where he crashed about 2Ks into the stage when they were leaving the kind of the start town, where it was winding through on the small roads to take them out to the bottom of the first climb. He seemed to catch one of the barriers at the side of the road, and it didn't look like a particularly high-speed crash, but it did look like he probably went over the handlebars and the bike just got taken out from under him, which sometimes can be nasty because he hit the ground with such an impact. But then they managed to pace it back on. It took about 45 minutes because the race was going full gas up ahead. And it did seem that he may have had kind of paced it just right, because he only had to take back about 15 seconds on the climb, and then he managed to catch the rest back on the descents in the bottom of the next one. But evidently, I think the crash is having its effects now. Well,
Astana are riding, and the breakaway group are, well, they still have 3 kilometres of climbing until they crest over this monstrous climb, and with the red jersey group 5 minutes further down the road, they've still got 4 or 5 kilometres of climbing here to look after Chris Froome, but the gap is growing, and these are worrying times for the leader of Team Sky. I mean, this could be, well, you hesitate to say it with Chris Froome, don't you? Because time and time again he looks like he's having a terrible day and he'll come back, but this is a much more serious looking situation.
No, this isn't good, because I mean, you can see this body language there, and the cadence. Normally be spinning a lot more. He probably would have, you know, he's got G with him, and we know G's not his absolute best at the moment, but he's had to drop back and help him, which goes to show that if G's still not in trouble, the race isn't going extremely hard yet. But Astana didn't do it because Chris Froome was getting dropped. Sky had been in control of the race at this point, so I don't think Chris was fully aware of how bad he was feeling, and because they paced the last 15-20 kilometres, and then just as Astana started to take control, then we saw Chris Froome get smashed out the back almost instantly.
Just over 3 kilometres of climbing remaining for the leaders on the road. That's Darwin Atapuma in the colours of BMC. In the Europe car green, Roman Sicard, who is the virtual red jersey on the road, and he is in the company of Mikel Landa. A teammate of these men at the front, Astana, setting things up for today, and Fabio Aru in third wheel. As we cut back again to Chris Froome, now he's got 2 teammates with him. I think that's Vasil Kirienka has joined alongside Geraint Thomas.
Look at the difference in cadence between Kirienko's first, and then Chris is just struggling. He's even struggling trying to hold Geraint's wheels. So normally we'd expect Chris Froome to have the highest cadence of these 3. We know Geraint always rides quite a big gear, but normally I'd say Chris Froome would definitely be riding a faster cadence than Kirienko, which implies that Kirienko still feels completely in control. So does G, and it's their leader who's in trouble.
The gap's growing out now. It is definitely expanding. It's 1 minute and 20 seconds and moving. As Fabio Aru sits in third wheel, just dancing on his pedals with Alejandro Valverde, Nairo Quintana, Joaquin Rodriguez, and a little bit further back, you can see the red jersey of Tom Dumoulin. Wasn't totally sure I could see the green jersey there worn by Esteban Chavez. I wonder if he's been dropped a little bit on that climb. As the helicopter pulls out, we lose contact a little bit with what's happening on the race, but as you rightly say, riders now stretched out all the way along this climb. It's in bits.
And there we saw that blue car that we just saw on the bottom, that helicopter shot. That's the blue car that they're kind of aiming for behind. You can just see it there in front of the top of the screen. So, but although they normally think that's the back of the front group, they know that it's just scattered across, and there's still another 30 seconds in front of those vehicles to get back to the front of the race. So this is a slog. So Nicolas Roche is suffering there as well. So he's dropped back. He's not dropping back to help. He's dropping back because he is getting dropped.
Meanwhile, up the road, there is Omar Fraile, the polka dot jersey. How he's got across to those, he's done it on his own, I think. He's got across to Poljanski there, dug incredibly deep to do it, and he is looking to secure more points over the top of this climb. His big rivals in the competition, Erviti and Ruben Plaza, don't feature up here at the front, so they would have needed to score maximum points over the top of this climb to deny Fraile another day in the polka dot jersey, which he now will almost certainly carry over the top of this and into tomorrow. This has got the hallmarks of a decisive day for Chris Froome. It would be nothing short of astonishing if he manages to come back from this. I mean, it's damage limitation for the time being, but the damage is nonetheless being done, and these are chunks of time he cannot afford to lose. Omar Fraile then moving to the front of this group of riders, which has swollen a little in number. Mikel Landa setting the pace, and Ian Boswell just responding to the pace as they near the final 500 metres of this climb. At least that's the lead group. 4 minutes further down the road, the red jersey group whittled down now to nothing more than a dozen, possibly 20 riders, because of a furious pace being set by Dario Cataldo, working for Astana and working for Fabio Aru. Alejandro Valverde still with him. Quintana, Rodriguez, who designed this brutal course today, Rafa Maica, Danny Moreno, the green jersey of Esteban Chavez, and the best placed Sky rider on the road right now, Mikel Nieve, because this man, with the number 1 on his back, Chris Froome, is having a nightmare day. He crashed on the very first climb, and he has cracked on the out-of-category climb and is beginning to hemorrhage time.
As he raises his arm, I'm not sure if his team car's there or he wants to speak to the doctor, the race doctor. We'll know in a minute, but either way, that's not a good sign.
Fraile has moved clear of that group, and there is no great intention from any of those other riders to challenge him as he takes maximum points over the out-of-category climb, the Collare de la Gallina, and that will secure him another day in the polka dot jersey. His job is absolutely done for the day. He would have full justification now in sitting up and rolling in with the gruppetto if that's what he wanted, but knowing him, he'll probably try and win the stage as well.
What is quite interesting is Nelson Obiera, you see him last position there, didn't go for the points. It would have been in his interest to try and beat him, because it was his teammate Ruben Plaza who was kind of trying to beat him for earlier in the stage. So normally what you do in that situation, you try to kind of defend your teammates' points by trying to beat the guy who's competing against.
As Chris Froome makes his way back to the doctor's car for a bit of a rolling diagnosis of what's going on. It'd be interesting to see if we could just get the camera around the side, which bit of his body is being looked at there. His left elbow definitely took the brunt of this fall. We didn't see the fall itself on that first climb. We saw the immediate aftermath, and it looked like such a pointless, innocuous place to come off.
It was completely. I mean, we didn't see anybody else in difficulty around there. The TV camera came around the corner, and there he was on the floor, the only guy to have crashed, and as you said, a very innocuous point. It was a moment of loss of concentration, or that's the only thing I can think of.
What was he being handed there? It looked like he was being given a bit of a pill to swallow.
Yeah, he's probably given some anti-inflammatories or something.
A painkiller.
That's normal. They give him some paracetamol and Nurofen. I think he deserves it. Well, he's obviously gone down hard. We saw before his shoulders ripped up, his hip, his knee, his elbow. It's not the worst crash we've seen, but sometimes those really heavy body slams can leave the most damage.
This is the end of his Vuelta, isn't it, in terms of a serious challenge?
Yeah, well, let's hope it's not the end, full stop. I mean, this is where we know the team boss will come up, and we're going to find out very soon whether Chris Froome is in bad enough state to stop the race, or whether the team boss and team doctor will make a rolling diagnosis of whether he should just stay and persevere, and because all he's got left now is to try and go for a stage win, I think, because it looks like the GC's out the window.
Head bowed, it doesn't look good at all for Chris Froome. Up the road, his teammate, young teammate Ian Boswell, will have got wind of this on team radio, what's been going on, and his role, which was to get up the road for, presumably to set up some sort of Chris Froome attack later on in the day, will be greatly changed now, because the Chris Froome attack won't be coming. His day is over, and his whole Vuelta hangs in the balance now. The question is, will he have enough in reserve to get to the end of today? And if he does, what does that mean for the rest of the race? Well, it looks like this is the end of the road for Chris Froome. Certainly any ambitions that he might have harboured of pulling off this double, winning the Tour de France and winning the Vuelta, are rapidly diminishing as the time gap increases, and wearily now, in some degree of pain as well, he reaches to his back pocket, pulls on his gilet, head bowed, thoughts muddied, trying to figure out what the point of his effort is now. The disappointment will be sitting just as deep as the physical pain and the punishment he's put himself through. He zips up and heads down to try and make the junction to Geraint Thomas and descend. But you can tell by his body language now, all the urgency is gone. This isn't really a chase. This is him just riding out the rest of the stage. The red jersey, Tom Dumoulin, with 34 kilometres remaining of this stage, shooting downhill. And when they get to the bottom, there'll be a Cat 2 climb and a Cat 1 finish still to come. They've been over 4 enormous mountain passes here in Andorra already. Little gesture there from Matteo Monteguti to the moto, not happy. It looked like the moto was giving a little bit back to Monteguti at that point. This is the remain of the breakaway group getting swept up. That was a green jersey of Esteban Chavez you just saw shoot past him. And this man as well, Imanol Erviti from Movistar, was in the breakaway move earlier on in the day. So it's all beginning to come back together. There are still riders up the road though. 3:38, the likes of Omar Fraile, the polka dot king of the mountains, who's swept up more points today to secure himself the lead for tomorrow. Ian Boswell still up the road, Mikel Landa is, and so too is Darwin Atapuma. Well, just signs that Tom Dumoulin might be in a little bit of trouble on this descent now.
Yeah, you see the gaps opening up. See Tom Dumoulin's in second position from what we just saw, the middle screen. There's the front group there, drifting away. That's with Aru. You've got Joaquim Rodriguez. So the gap's opening. It's so technical, this descent. And we know Joaquim Rodriguez, he designed this course, so he's going to know these roads. And if Tom Dumoulin wasn't expecting that, that's going to be a big shock, because he hasn't got any teammates to help him. And if he finds himself coming off this with a gap, who's going to help him? I don't think there's anybody there that's going to help him. Maybe it's the AGR Mondial riders who have got Posse Vivo, but that's all he can rely on now.
Well, they've got another 6 or 7 kilometres of descending to go. At least the front group have, and this group of favourites have a kilometre or so more than that. So the point is, though, and the problem for Tom Dumoulin is that there is no flat road, no valley road at the bottom of this where he can time trial across and close that gap again, because it's just going to go straight uphill again. Yeah, I mean, that is going to make it slightly difficult. And you can see the gaps. I mean, this is only Tom Dumoulin coming through now. So, I mean, that's a fair old distance between kind of him and the front riders. And see the AG2R Mondial rider in front of him. He keeps looking behind because he knows his team leader, Posse Vivo, is behind Tom Dumoulin. So Tom Dumoulin's got to get by him as quickly as he can so he can just do his descent, because this is where he'll make time, unless, like I said, he's scared himself and doesn't want to take any risks. And now we're with Alejandro Valverde and Joaquim Rodriguez, who are obviously delivering a Spanish masterclass in getting down these descents. Well, they're both phenomenal descenders. I mean, I know from racing with them, and I think the whole peloton knows. Now it's a little indication. You see Valverde, his right hand, he just moved it forward as if to say to Joaquim Rodriguez, let's go. I mean, whether or not they know quite the position that the red jersey is in, occasionally I suppose the road will open up behind them in a glance, or a little glance up towards the switchbacks behind. They'll be aware of what's happening. It's too technical. I mean, that's the thing. In these descents, you don't know what's going on. You just got to hope that in the team cars behind, they're watching this on TV. But I mean, you can see how hard it is for us to spot them. It's only on a minuscule screen in the TVs, so in the cars. So it's debatable whether they'll have seen. But now they'll know, as the road opens up a bit, they can look behind and they can see that nobody's there. And look, they're chatting slightly. And there's got Moreno as well. So Joaquim Rodriguez is in a prime position. And also, Alejandro Valverde has a teammate up ahead.
So this is where it's a perfect position for Alejandro Valverde, because he knows, even though he's at the front of the GC group, as he throws a newspaper out from under his shirt, that would have been keeping us warm, that he's got 2 teammates up ahead. He's got Erviti and he's got
Javier Moreno.
Exactly.
As well.
Who, this is their tactic for them. Then Alejandro Valverde comes up to them.
And there's Alberto Losada as well from Katusha, who's there with, I think that's Javier Moreno and Losada. So there we go.
Yeah. So this is it. I think that's Erviti actually. That maybe has been called back. He looks big enough. He's a big guy. Yeah, I think that's, so this is tactics 101 here. They've sent their kind of domestiques up ahead in the early break, and then once they launch the race from behind, those domestiques come back to then work for them. Look at this is flat out. So you see that is Erviti on the front, and yeah, I think you're right, that is Losada. So those two, they've been out the front all day, so they know they haven't got much left, so they're just going to have to go as hard as they can for as long as they can to drag that gap out to Tom Dumoulin right now, because they're only going to have about 5 or 10 minutes worth left of gas at this speed.
Here we are at the front of the race. There's Mikel Landa in the colours of Astana, just goes off the front again. He's done this 2 or 3 times so far, just found himself a little bit of a gap that has been brought back, and Nelson Oliveira from Team Lampe Merida is trying to do just that with the ever-game Omar Fraile. That's Pavel Polyansky from Tinkoff Saxo, who might well be useful up the road for Rafa Majka, who's an interesting one to watch today on the final climb.
Yeah, he is, but I think I'm going to be interested to see. I think this group that came over the top of that climb before, and oh, look, and here we go. So this is Aru, who's been dropped out, Valverde and Joaquin Rodriguez as well. So he's only got 1 teammate left to try and bring that. So they did the whole previous climb and then have been caught out, hijacked really, by Joaquin Rodriguez and Alejandro Valverde, who have attacked. So now got Nairo Quintana just sitting on Aru's wheel, knowing that Aru has to do all the work to get back up to his teammate Valverde, and then he can profit off that.
Jose Consalves from Caja Rural at the back of that line. That's Rafa Majka in front of him. Esteban Chavez wearing green today, the Colombian, with Nairo Quintana, his countryman, and Fabio Aru, who, you're absolutely right, he almost got lost in all that action between Dumoulin and Valverde and Rodriguez. He's on his own as well. He may well still have Geraint Thomas alongside him or just in front of him. Indeed, he still does, but Chris Froome is staring defeat on the Vuelta in terms of his overall ambitions square in the face now. It's down to the rest. What can Quintana deliver on the final climb, or Aru, Valverde, Rodriguez, or any of the rest of them? The big group of favourites are on the final climb up to Cortais d'Encamp, the last climb of the day, a Category 1 climb, and you can see in that group of favourites the red jersey of Tom Dumoulin. Then he's back in, but at some cost. In the end, he had to rely on some great work by Domenico Pozzovivo, the AG2R climber, who closed the gap across to Joaquin Rodriguez and Alejandro Valverde, who'd attacked brilliantly on that descent. So, in terms of these favourites then, it's all back together again. Meanwhile, up front, 2 minutes 4 seconds ahead of them, Mikel Landa has decided to make a move. This is his 3rd attack of the day, away in the breakaway, and he is just trying to solo to victory, or possibly, if this comes back together, work for Fabio Aru further up the slopes. What is the game plan here for Astana?
Well, this works either way, because if Aru is feeling strong enough and he attacks, he knows whatever happens, he can rely on there being a teammate up the road, because he's used up all his teammates, first of all, in trying to distance Tom Dumoulin, and first of all trying to distance Chris Froome, then trying to distance Dumoulin, then trying to chase back onto Valverde's group, and then so actually the only teammate he's got left of use after, there goes Aru. So this is now perfect. His idea now will be to try to bridge up to Landa and then use Landa to kind of pace him as far as he can again before he launches again.
Well, Aru does not hang around. He's not waited until this climb is barely a kilometre old before he lays down his attack. And Darwin Atapuma, the BMC rider there, gets swept up by the reaction. Joaquin Rodriguez in the white jersey with Alejandro Valverde on his wheel and Dani Moreno and Nairo Quintana, and Rafa Majka is able to react. Now, what can the red jersey of Tom Dumoulin do? He comes up to the wheel of Esteban Chavez, and these two are already finding the pace. Too hot at the moment up front. So Chavez gapped. Dumoulin really struggling. He'll be looking at that 57 seconds he has to defend on this slope, and he will realise that this is going to be a very, very long 8 kilometres indeed. Aru is setting a blistering pace. Rodriguez gritting his teeth, and he's closed the gap and got on the wheel. That's Mikel Nieve there, Team Sky's best placed rider, and Alejandro Valverde also finding it a little bit too tough at the moment.
And you can see this teammate behind from Astana who's just sitting there. He's on the radio. I think he'll be telling Aru what's going on behind, because Aru won't know exactly. He'll be telling them that Valverde's dropped, that Dumoulin's on his wheel, that Chavez is there, because that's the first information that Aru will get. He'll now know that his move is working.
Well, this is a really important day on the Vuelta, and you can tell by the intensity with which the final climb has been attacked that this might well be decisive for some riders. The day itself has already been decisive for Chris Froome. He's out of contention. But what will happen now to Alejandro Valverde? He's in that little group there with Mikel Nieve, who assumes now de facto leadership of Team Sky in the absence of Chris Froome's challenge. And what about Tom Dumoulin? You can tell by the speed he's going up. These slopes are steep.
All he's got to do now is a time trial. Now he can slip into what he's best at as an individual time trial. He's not panicked at all the whole day. He's been in a super defensive role. Now, Landa, I'm not sure if he'll know yet, but he's just going to have to keep going as long as he can and wait for Aru to get up to him, because he'll now know that the race has gone so early on this final climb that there's little chance of making. Although, to be honest, he's doing an incredible job maintaining that gap at 2 minutes, which just goes to show how strong he is, because he's been off the front all day.
Fascinating tactics by Astana today as Aru looks over his shoulder, and Tom Dumoulin's actually, as you say, he's time trialing. He just gets out of his saddle now and raises the pace a little bit more, because he's not lost total contact with that group in front containing Quintana.
No, he's rode a very clever race today. It's hard to tell whether he's been hidden. He's almost been kind of away from all the other GC favourites, further back. He's not had a team to help him, which isn't a surprise, because it's not a team that's really designed for this sort of course, because to be fair, they never realised that Tom would be this good. So they didn't have climbers here that could help him. But what he's riding here is perfect. He's just pacing it, and you can see he's already dropped Domenico Pozzovivo. And here's interesting. Now you've got Chavez and Tom Dumoulin. They have to work together. They're the two guys that have been racing against together this whole first week. Now they're essentially teammates on this final climb.
Well, Chavez just moves to the front then. Dumoulin lowers his head, asking his body just to give him one more effort to hold on to this red jersey on this climb. And he gets on the wheel, I think, of Chavez, or is Chavez just, well, there's a bit of a gap opening up there. Dumoulin, though, just about able to close it, and Chavez is bringing that group back, but you can see just up front there, Rafa Maika reacting to a little move from Mikel Nieve. So Nieve has moved clear of Quintana and of Alejandro Valverde, so it's all opening up on this climb. Up ahead, though, Nieve will try and get to this trio of riders, Dani Moreno and Joaquim Rodriguez and Fabio Aru, who started it all off, kicked it all off on the lowest of low slopes on the final climb.
And this is what we've seen all day, the last hour anyway. It's all these little alliances forming. So they're kind of little groups that are all having to work together to try and defend their position or try and bridge back up. Now, these are the only three here who are essentially in an offensive position. Them and Landa, who is further ahead. All the other groups behind are just working together to try to get back up to these guys or limit the damage. And we see Tom Dumoulin doing a fantastic job, because he's just pacing there, and he's just going to sit here now. He knows nobody's going to help him. He's back with Chavez. Chavez is a much more punchy little climber, but he's not panicking, and he can see Nairo Quintana is pacing Valverde, and so his job now is to get up to there, and then he can use Nairo Quintana's work to almost serve him as his own domestique. But I don't know whether Valverde's going to tell him he looks like he's just told Quintana to go and do it himself.
It's all been too much for Chris Froome, who crashed on the very first climb and has gone backwards. His day is done and his race is cooked. Aru has gone. Now, Aru has decided that he's going to have to take time out of Rodriguez on this finish, and he's attacked him. And for the time being, Rodriguez looks like he has no answer to this attack. Aru looks fresh, he looks full of impetus, and he looks, on this slope today, the best climber of them all. Little glance over his shoulder will confirm that explosive acceleration did the damage he wanted it to. Now, the question is, can he sustain this for the next 5+ kilometres? Last time he attacked, we saw him go off incredibly fast, but actually, when they crossed the line, a lot of other riders had come back to him. So it's a question of whether or not he can hold that tempo that's got him clear. Tom Dumoulin then, just leaving your screen on the right, and you can see the gaps that are opening up. Nairo Quintana just ahead of him.
You could see the amount of work Poyanski was doing there for Maika. His head was going all over the place, but he's done so much that he's managed to drop Quintana slightly, who has either decided that he's not going to be good enough to win the stage or anything, so he may as well go back and help his teammate. And there he's come to a standstill. He's actually come to a standstill. That's how deep he was going.
Amazing. When your legs go like that, they go in such spectacular style. Body says, no, that'll do. Nairo Quintana says, what can I do now? I'm all on my own. I've got riders in front of me and riders behind, but this man knows that he has every chance now of taking a big chunk of time back. He started the day in 5th place overall at 1 minute and 13 seconds. Nicholas Roach was above him. He will soar past Roach, who's had a bad day. He will take time and go past Esteban Chavez, who's further back on the road. The question is, will he be in 2nd place, or will he possibly even be in 1st place by the end of the day? Tom Dumoulin gets out of the saddle, sees ahead of him the 4 kilometres to go banner, which will either inspire or dishearten him. Maybe a mixture of both, as he tries to time trial his way back up to the riders who are doing him damage in the overall classification. One of those riders, with a teammate in front of him, is Joaquim Rodriguez. He reacted to an attack by Fabio Aru on the lower slopes, and the 3 of them got away for a bit. Then Aru attacked again, and that attack from Aru gapped Rodriguez. Meanwhile, Dumoulin is dragging Esteban Chavez back with him and trying to limit his losses. But it may well be that he is seeing the race lead evaporate in front of him. He's doing a great job limiting his, maximising everything that he can in terms of his effort and trying to limit going into the red as much as he can. But he knows that this is a major challenge from some of the biggest names in the Vuelta history. Rodriguez, Valverde is ahead of him on the road. Fabio Aru bringing Ian Boswell as well with him, a remainder of the breakaway. So Aru continues to climb on his own, looking for the race lead. Mikel Landa is looking for a stage win, having lost substantial amounts of time in the previous 2 stages. Landa's sole objective here, one would imagine, is riding out a stage win. 1 minute and 36 seconds then. Mikel Landa has over his chasers. That should be enough, one would imagine, with just 2.4 kilometres remaining. It's going to be a Mikel Landa stage win unless something really dramatic happens. Meanwhile, Dumoulin has in his sights the group of Mikel Nieve and Rafa Majka. So that'll be some sort of inspiration to him, or at least something that he can aim at to drag the other 2 riders up, because they are not contributing to this chase whatsoever.
No, he'll be getting his morale will be through the roof at the moment, even if he is suffering like a dog, because he's seen Nairo Quintana blow up, Alejandro Valverde blow up. He's seen Chris Froome he doesn't actually know much about the injury, but he sees him gone. He is he's in the top 5 at the moment, of the best climbers in the world, which if you told him that before this race began, he would have never dreamt of, I don't think.
Fabio Aru, under 2 kilometres now, knows that he has a real possibility of taking a race lead here. 16 seconds he has to make good to Joaquim Rodriguez, and 1 minute and 13 seconds to Tom Dumoulin. And the way that the riders are stretched out on the road pretty much reflects exactly that. If you stop them now, they would all be on much of a muchness, and it would be interesting to know right now who the virtual leader is, because it's hanging in the balance as Rodriguez continues to dig deep on Moreno's wheel.
As it stands, Fabio Aru has a jersey by 6 seconds, 7 seconds. So it really is close.
Well, under the 1 kilometre kite for Mikel Landa, who has victory right within his grasp now. His teammate behind him just getting out of the saddle again and pushing on, leaning right over the handlebars on another steep section of this horrible climb. Knows that the red jersey is dangling right in front of him. Tantalisingly close now, Fabio Aru, to taking the race lead on the Vuelta a España. He came here to do just that, and it could be a wonderful day for Team Astana, who played an absolute tactical masterstroke today. Joaquim Rodriguez, who designed today's course, has found it just too tough for him, although he has put time again into his old rival Alejandro Valverde, who's cracked. Nairo Quintana surprisingly is cracked on this climb. Tom Dumoulin has not cracked, but he is losing time, and he is out of the race lead on the road at the moment. The question is by how much, and how much will Esteban Chavez also lose today? Meanwhile, Fabio Aru behind him on the road now, behind Mikel Landa, takes the 1 kilometre to go banner, and he moves over to the left-hand side of the road. The gradient ever so slightly slackening off now. Not that that will feel anything like it to Mikel Landa, who's been away in a breakaway all day. He's attacked 3 times. He's just on the radio now to get the position, to find out what's happening on the road, just to make sure that he knows that he can ease up now and take the applause and enjoy this moment. Mikel Landa joined Astana 3 years ago from the Basque team Euskaltel Euskadi, and he knows that when you win on the Vuelta and you win in Spain in front of your home crowd, it matters more than most victories. Mikel Landa has deserved this. Perhaps it was a card that they were playing in support of Aru, but he's taken his opportunity. It has not in any way harmed the overall ambitions of Fabio Aru. Instead, it's just proven what a strong team Astana came to this Vuelta with, and what it is when they're on song they're capable of achieving. Mikel Landa then knows that the victory is his. He can ride the final 200 metres. There might be a tear in his eye even as he just takes his finger and just dabs at his eye there. And you could forgive him the emotion of coming to a Vuelta and winning a stage in the highest of high mountains in Andorra, taking a victory on a famous stage. Some people have described this as the hardest stage on any Grand Tour that's ever been ridden, and he has conquered it. Mikel Landa, moved by the experience, and the Spanish crowd thoroughly enjoying this win. A clap of the hands, a pump of the fists, blowing at his cheeks. Job done, Mikel Landa. A tremendous victory. Meanwhile, every second counts for this man. Fabio Aru with the #1 on his back for the team leader. Of course, they came here with Vincenzo Nibali. They came here with Mikel Landa as a plan C, if you like. Now it's all about plan A. Aru driving on. Fabio Aru could have won the Giro this year. Found that Alberto Contador was just too strong for him, but he's come to the Vuelta wanting to put that right and showing that he is a stage racer of pure class who will go on, I'm sure, to win Grand Tours in the future. The more immediate question is, will Aru be capable now of repeating this on the summit finishes still to come? Can he put time into his rivals every time that the mountain goes uphill and someone paints a finishing line on the top of it? 200 metres to go, and he is showing no sign of slowing up. If anything, the pace he is setting is getting higher and higher. He attacked right at the foot of this climb, found it resettling with Rodriguez, and then attacked Rodriguez again and dropping him. Dropping the entire race, of dropping Dumoulin, Valverde, Quintana. They're all out of contention today at least, as Aru takes chunks of time out of them. Powering across the line now, Fabio Aru knows that he cannot let up, because the watch will start now and the time gaps will begin to tell the tale. Rodriguez now within 200 meters. He has 16 seconds to defend, although it is actually, with the time difference, with the time bonuses available, slightly less than that, as Ian Boswell crosses the line. This will not be enough for Rodriguez. Rodriguez cannot take the overall lead today. He's lost too much time to Fabio Aru. The only question now in terms of the overall lead is, where is Tom Dumoulin on the road? Because Rodriguez has not managed to get the better of Fabio Aru. He's not managed to defend his position relative to Aru. 2 minutes and 34 seconds.
Yes, for Tom Dumoulin, if he can get in here at 2:34, then he saved the red jersey, but I'm not sure. By the looks of it, I think he's going to be, if he gets inside 3 minutes, that's going to be a fantastic ride still, because that means he's going to be within 30 seconds of Aru. But here he comes, and here Chavez finally come through to lend a hand, but at least it's something. Tom Dumoulin, he's not going to let that go after sitting there the whole race.
No, well, Esteban Chavez then in the green jersey just moves past Tom Dumoulin, has done so much work in his service. But Chavez goes through 100 metres. Dumoulin tries to get past Chavez. 2:38. The clock has told the story, and I'm afraid it is the end of the road, at least for now, for Tom Dumoulin. His spell in the red jersey, his second spell in the red leader's jersey, will come to an end today. But he's defended with incredible valour and extreme bravery and some resolve. And he knows that it's not over yet for him overall on this race, as Alejandro Valverde comes to the line.
Now, 1 minute and 15 behind Valverde was his teammate Nairo Quintana, who'd looked the stronger of the two early on the final climb. He came in a small group with Louis Meintjes. Another 4 minutes 22 behind them, against the flow of riders already heading back down the hill, came the figure of Chris Froome. He never looks comfortable on the bike, but his level of discomfort off the bike was clear. Considerate as always, though, he made time to speak to us.
Yeah, I mean, I just tried to ride at my own speed there after the crash, and yeah, I'm in quite a lot of pain at the moment, so I'll just get checked up by the medical staff this evening and take it from there.
It was the knee from the crash that's the problem.
Yeah, I mean that crash, yeah, it did take quite a lot out of me there, and from then on I was just trying to hang on for dear life. I emptied myself just to get to the finish, but and of course my teammates did a great job looking after me today, and it's good to hear that Mikel Nieve was out front, and Ian Boswell too, and that also gave me a lot of morale just to keep pushing on.
The extent to which he could put any weight on his right leg as he limped away made you fear for Chris Froome's ability to keep pushing on. He headed off to hospital for x-rays. Here's the result in the meantime, a great one for Astana, with Mikel Landa winning the stage and Fabio Aru the battle of the favourites, a minute 22 behind him. We should laud Ian Boswell's third place in passing. He held off Danny Moreno and Joaquin Rodriguez, who were the last men inside 2 minutes of the stage winner. Rafael Majka and Sky's new de facto leader Mikel Nieve finished together at 2:10, Esteban Chavez and Tom Dumoulin at 2 minutes 59. Domenico Pozzovivo lost 5 minutes 56 today, and on a bad day for Sky, Nicholas Roach lost 14:25. Talking of bad days, it was another fractious one between the cyclists and the motorcyclists on the race. Froome pulled alongside to swear an Italian at one, who he felt cut him up early in the race. Matteo Monteguti felt this one was too close on the corner of a descent. Then came the news that a motorbike had taken out a second Tinkoff Saxo rider, Sergio Paulinho, taken to hospital where he needed 17 stitches. And this on the day that the team had made a demand for a public apology, among other things, from the race organisers over the incident that forced Peter Sagan to abandon. Happily unaware of all that, and with the super slow-mo camera to himself at the finish, was Mikel Landa. The plan may have been for him to get into the break to help Fabio Aru later in the stage, but even Aru couldn't close on him significantly on the final climb. The stars of the first phase of the Vuelta, little and large, finished together and held onto a jersey each. Chavez kept green, and Tom Dumoulin the white of the rider with the best combined standing in all the other competitions.
You today have proved that you can be a Grand Tour contender, a real one. How does that feel?
I don't know if I've proven that, but yeah, it feels good to be up there and to be here with the best on this very hard day. And actually, I was surprised. I imagined it to be even harder.
And at the end of it, he's still in a podium position behind Joaquin Rodriguez, who couldn't quite win his own stage, and Fabio Aru. Rafael Majka is up to 4th, ahead of Esteban Chavez. Then it's Valverde, Moreno, Nieve, Quintana and Meintjes. Chris Froome is now 15th at 7 minutes 30, Nicholas Roach 22nd at 13:03. Well, we knew the stage would tell us something significant about the race. Perhaps the chief headline is that in a field of rivals who rode the Tour, Fabio Aru was significantly fresher.
Hai attaccato, Purito ti ha seguito, un attimino con Purito e poi Moreno e poi attaccato secco. Pensavi di lasciarli e guadagnare la maglia oggi?
Io ho provato a fare la mia corsa, quando ho visto che si stava riavvicinando il gruppetto di Quintana sono ripartito e ho pensato ad andare a tutta sino all'arrivo. Insomma, è stata veramente 5 chilometri, anzi forse una decina di chilometri di vera sofferenza, è una tappa veramente durissima.